Local programming on KRWG made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Your Legislators, a production of KRWG Broadcasting. Your Legislators is a public service program providing our viewing and listening audiences in southern New Mexico the opportunity to hear about important legislative issues directly from their elected representatives in Santa Fe. Now here is your host, Carlos Correa.
I'm Carlos Correa. Welcome to Your Legislators, the program that sits down with area lawmakers to discuss all the happenings in Santa Fe. Joining me now from Santa Fe is Senator Mary Jane Garcia. Senator Garcia, welcome again to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
First, congratulations, Senator Garcia, on winning the Bruce King Award this year. And to let our audience know, you are the first ever award winner from Doña Ana County, and the award was established to honor Governor King's legacy and is presented to one lawmaker from the Senate and one from the House of Representatives. Congratulations again.
Thank you so much. And that was for my work in human trafficking and child abuse.
That's wonderful. Let's begin by talking about that controversial bill on driver's licenses. Senator Garcia, as many people predicted, this bill, which was introduced by Representative Andy Nunez from Hatch and is supported by Governor Susana Martinez, has resurfaced this legislative session. Why do you think this issue continues to make its way onto the floor?
Well, many of us feel that they call it an immigration issue, a public safety issue, and actually I call it a human rights issue. Last night in Public Affairs, we passed that bill, the compromise bill, sponsored by our pro tem Senator Tim Jennings. We passed that on to Judiciary. And let's see what happens there. Andy Nunez's bill died in committee, I believe, last week in the House side. And they passed it there last year, but it died in a committee in the House side. We haven't received that bill here in the Senate at all. We did pass a compromise bill, which is very good, in terms of a compromise, if the governor could just sit down with us and talk about it. And what it does, it issues that license to undocumented people for 2 years only, and have to prove that they've been in the same address for the last 6 months, I believe, and that they have no criminal record. It also has a fingerprints on the card, and we think that that would be very viable because there's so many. They're talking about 80, 90,000. I cannot even begin to imagine visually how they could deport that many people to different countries. I think the worst one probably is Mexico, our nearest neighbors. So we're trying to work with them because I personally feel, looking at it in economic terms, this might hurt agriculture. We know there's a lot of undocumented people out there. It would hurt construction. It would hurt the hospitality industries, the hotels, the restaurants, where they're all working, and we all know that. So I don't know. My sense was, and last night I made this statement, if we really wanted to stop the debate on this type of licenses, we should then do a bill, bipartisan, that would heavily penalize a person, a company, or a corporation that hires undocumented people. That would stop the debate right then and there, I feel. It has become a very political issue. We all know it's a national GOP issue, and they're trying to defeat some of us Democrats just on that very issue, which is totally unfair. And I, for one, I voted for a due pass on the compromise bill. I think that there were only 2 dissenting votes, and they were the 2 Republicans in the committee. So that shows you it's we've been just totally divided, and I don't like that division that has been created by this one bill. It isn't right for people to just criticize us, that we support them, because not only economics, human, they're separating families. Children are being separated from their parents. And I think that we need to work on a compromise with the governor if she would sit down and talk to us about it.
Senator
But she wants
Garcia,
it total repeal. Yes.
do you think this issue is over, or will lawmakers like Representative Nunez try to find new ways to repeal this law?
I don't know what they're going to do. The thing of it is that I feel that we're wasting a lot of time and taxpayers' money just on this one issue. She has made it of great importance. There's other issues that we have out there that we need to vote on, that we need to present. And I think the people that I talk to, their main concern is not about licenses. It's about jobs. It's about unemployment. It's about the economy. Those are the issues that we're wasting time on licenses and not talking about.
Supporters of the bill say it's a matter of keeping this state safe. Do you believe that?
Well, you know, the reason we did this bill in 2003 with Governor Richardson then was a safety issue. The entire law enforcement was on board with it. Why? How can you best track people if not through a driver's license? They wanted it, and we had the highest percentage in the nation of uninsured people. If you get hit by one of the undocumented, it's going to fall on you to pay for those expenses, you know. So that's why we did it then. And it worked very well. But all of a sudden, they've made in the last 2-3 years, they have made it a political issue to try to defeat a lot of Democrats on this single issue, which is wrong. I still think our priority should be job creation.
Senator Garcia, how would repealing this law impact the number of undocumented individuals already living here in New Mexico and in Doña Ana County?
Well, let me give you an example. In my community, which it might be 85-90% people from Mexico that live in a certain area because it's affordable, and they have been there in my community even since before I was born, and I'm 75 years. How can I ask these people now, you're going to have to go back to Mexico, we don't want you, you don't have a license, you can't drive. Well, their sons and daughters have been in our institutions of higher learning, they've gotten degrees, they've gone on to fight our wars, and it's okay to be undocumented if you go and fight in the wars. I don't understand that double standard at all. So, I mean, I cannot envision 80 or 90,000 people being deported to their respective nations, as I said. We need to work with them. We have to give them an opportunity. And I hate gangsters, and I hate criminals, and I despise the cartels and what they're doing on our border. I live 40 miles from the border, but you know what? We have the technologies. We have the technology to create some type of mechanism that when they're coming through the border, we would be able to immediately identify if that person is a criminal or not. They do that in Tijuana now. A lot of borders are doing that. Why can't we do that? Why do we have to persist on this one issue of undocumented? You know, a lot of the students are here working on a degree to create a good career for themselves. The DREAM Act, I've always supported that, because not all people coming from Mexico or elsewhere are criminals. I asked in the committee last night, they were talking about tax fraud from undocumented, and I asked a person there that was testifying, does she have any record of how many cases of tax fraud we have had by U.S. citizens, both in the nation and in New Mexico? And she couldn't respond except to say that there's many. Of course we know that there's many. We continue to read about tax fraud. So you can't, they're finding ways to gotcha type of thing, and I don't like that. I think we need to look at it in a more humane way.
As you mentioned, this law has divided a lot of people in the community. How has it divided lawmakers in Santa Fe?
It has divided us greatly. Some senators that are Democrats are from conservative areas. They have to support the governor's bill, and we understand that in caucus. Others, you know, have them living among themselves like I do, and they're fine with it. They want to help them, but it has impacted some of our senators, and I think that there's an attempt to find out those that do not support the governor's bill to try to defeat us in the next election.
What do you think that
This is the third time we tried this, okay? The third time, and it hasn't gone through.
What do you think the lawmakers who support this bill not understanding the fight against driver's licenses?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that question.
What are they not understanding in regards to this bill?
The ones that do not understand it is they just listen to the rhetoric of the GOP. They're illegals. We got to get them out of here. That's Representative Nunez debate. They're illegal. We got to get them out of here. They have to have a Social Security card. Well, the military undocumented don't need a Social Security card to get in the military and go fight our wars. That's a double standard.
There's a lot of people around the state that call this bill an immigration bill or call it racist. Why do you think many people think of it that way?
Well, because it seems like the greatest attack is on Mexico. And they're Mexican people, very poor. They're in a failed country. They have had terrible leaders that have not taken care of the people there. And they've come here to do whatever jobs they can just to put food on the table. And, some are very kind. And I know Mexican people, undocumented, that perhaps have a nice business going, a meat market, groceries, gifts. There's many in Las Cruces right now. We get along with them. The Hispanics do. I think that there has been a certain image of violence and criminality that goes to those people that come in from Mexico, and that should not be the case. That should not be the case. I went to a trip to Mexico a long time ago, invited by the governor of Chihuahua, I think it was, and they showed us a documentary. I was shocked by it, where all these people coming from the U.S. with bags and bags of drugs, they go and pick up the drugs from the campesinos there, and then they have to go, and the fleet from Mexico has to go and burn all those drugs. Some of them don't get burned, we all know that. Some of them get through the borders, we all know that, because they have a lot of movidas right at the border. They know which ones to let go by. So the idea of criminality on the border, it repulses me to a degree, because we're just attacking the one faction. If you met the people that I know and how intelligent and cultured and refined they are from Mexico, you would be shocked. They're not criminals, not cartels, not druggies, not anything. That's why I say, why are we treating them, in this fashion, making them believe that they're criminals? Why go and scare a bunch of kids in a classroom when the Border Patrol or policemen come in to take them out of there? That's not right. The reason that happened because they got a federal grant to go and do a sting to see if they could catch undocumented illegals. That's wrong. My dad one time got picked up by the Border Patrol. Mm-hmm. My dad was born in Doñana Village, just the way I was. Mm-hmm. He was out in his field. He had about 25 acres, and he's out there in his field wearing a bandana because it was very hot, and the Border Patrol came and picked him up. And he was laughing. He said, "You're on my property." I said, "Yeah, right." He said, "Take me to my wife. We have a business in the village." And so they took my dad up to our grocery store there, and we had a pool hall as well, and a nightclub as well, and all that economic activity was my parents. And then my mom said, "What are you doing in this paddy wagon?" So well, they picked me up. They think I'm a wetback. That's what my dad said.
Wow. As I mentioned, Senator Garcia, lawmakers who support this bill say repealing the law will help keep this state safe. And switching gears now, Senator Garcia, you're sponsoring bills right now to help keep our young citizens from abuse. Senate Bill 57, it's called Child Sexual Abuse Prevention Task Force. And for our viewers out there, that bill creates a task force effective at the end of the year that will formulate recommendations for combating child sexual abuse, including an age-appropriate educational component for children, parents, and school personnel.
My office was in touch with a lady from Chicago that found that third-year-old children were being taught a lot of things in school. We teach them how to carry their own baggage in airports. They know how to do computers. They know how to climb mountains. And they don't know how to identify behavior that's not appropriate. And so she got that. Her name is Erin, and she developed Erin's Law in Illinois and also New York, and she was working in Indiana. Unfortunately, I did not get a message from the governor to do that one. I'll try it next year. However, I did pass the other three bills.
Oh, that's
58,
wonderful.
yes. 58 is if you rape a child under 5 years old, right now a penalty for that is like 18 years. I want to make that a first-degree felony for aggravated sexual penetration, which would mean that you'd get a life sentence, 30 years, and then if you qualify for parole, you could ask for one there. The other one, and that's to protect children under 5. Can you imagine a 1-year-old baby being raped? I mean, I was horrified. I can't take this abuse anymore, and I don't think that that our state can either. I'm afraid to open a newspaper or turn on the TV. The other one is a 59, which is a child murder. If you murder a child under 13 years of age, you're going to be in an aggravated circumstance type of crime, which is the type that pertains to when you kill a policeman, when you kill a correction officer, when you hire somebody to murder someone on a witness. I want to make this type of murder on a child under 13 also an aggravating circumstance capital felony case. That would mean life in prison with no parole. Those are my two main ones. The third one already passed, and it's in finance, and I hope that they see fit to give me $350,000 to put those billboards back up throughout New Mexico that say report child abuse, and then they have a number. They've done it well for DWI under Richardson, and you know those are very effective. You see them so many miles, and there it is, report DWI and a number. This is what those billboards will do.
Senator Garcia, you've been a champion in the fight against child abuse here in our state and for many years. And we might add that last year you fought to pass a bill that mandates child abuse incident training for police. What makes this issue so passionate for you?
Because oftentimes, let's say that a couple of policemen go into a home where there's a domestic violence issue and the man and his wife are fighting, and they didn't bother to walk into the next room where there might be a little child on the corner bruised and crying. We need to train them. All law enforcement needs to be trained on how to identify and look out for child abuse. That's what that bill would do, train the policemen.
How can we keep children in our community around the state safe?
Well, you know, as just a New Mexican, anywhere you go, make sure that you keep your eyes open and that you look around you. Is a woman just beating the heck out of her child in a store? I recently, not too long ago, was in a movie theater in Las Cruces, a dark parking lot, and there was a truck with about that much open on the windows. There was a little boy in there. I would say the little boy was 2 years old. There wasn't anybody else in there except the little boy, and the doors were locked. And what I did is I called 911, and I got that driver's license number and reported it. Go to this place immediately. There's a little boy in there all by himself in a truck at night. But no adult was there. So we can do a lot ourselves in trying to identify and report child abuse. And there is a number to call. It's a SAFE, S-A-F-E, pound. That puts you directly to CYFD. Report that crime, and they'll go and investigate it right away. You could save a child's life.
Why do you think there are so many cases out there in New Mexico in regards to child abuse, and probably many more that are not reported?
How do what?
Why do you think there are so many cases of child abuse in New Mexico?
Are not reported? Why do you think? Well, oftentimes it's within the families. And you know, grandma doesn't want to report her grandson or something like that could be happening. That's why they don't report it. They're afraid to get involved in any crime, and they shouldn't be. Not when it pertains to children. We need to protect our children. They're vulnerable. Babies can scream out for help. My God, they're in a crib being raped by some animal. You know, we've got to open our eyes and look around us and see who's there. If you see any children, try to keep your eyes on that child. Make sure it's not being abused in any way.
As you mentioned, Senate Bill 57 will be defined as aggravated criminal sexual penetration and eligible for a first-degree felony. Now, many people would agree that doing everything we can to help keep our children safe is very important, especially punishing those who commit such crimes. Senator Garcia, Senate Bill 59 adds an additional aggravation circumstance, as you mentioned. Do you think that's
right?
Do you think that's enough in terms of punishing someone?
I think that that's fair because, you know, you take the life of a child under 13 and intentionally, and why should you just get out free or on bail or whatever? You put that person in prison and you let that person rot in there for what he did. That's how I feel about child abuse. They should not be out. And you know, especially I was thinking, you know, if a person killed a child and would go to jail, you know, the crime right now for rape of a child is 18 years out to go. If you're 20, you're 28, you know, when you come out, you're still young. You could go and rape other children. That's what we're trying to prevent, violence against children. The first bill I introduced on children in this type of bill legislation was, I did the Megan Law. That was in 1995. I was fairly new, and I did Megan's Law. And then I did a 24-hour Amber Alert for missing children. I forget, but it was early on. Mm-hmm. And then I've done the Brianna. That was my bill as well. I've always done animal cruelty bills and domestic violence and child abuse issues because they are totally related. If you bang on a little kitty or kill a coyote or whatever out there, when you grow up, you're going to be doing that on adults.
Senator Garcia, I understand that Senate Bill 59, murders committed with an aggravated circumstance are eligible for New Mexico's highest sentence, which is life in prison without possibility of parole. Is there enough space to hold these criminals for a life sentence?
I hope there is, because you know what, we had this discussion last night, and several of us in public affairs felt the same way. Our prisons right now are full of young people with DWIs, with little, I don't know, whatever they smoke or take in their nose or whatever, drugs, small amounts. We need to do something about the non-violent offender and use our prisons for the killers, the rapists, the real criminals. Then we wouldn't be have that problem that could create another riot like 1980. We should be discussing that. There's too many criminals in prison that do not get treatment, and a lot of them today are on illegal drugs and legal drugs. There's a very horrifying drug out there, pharmaceutical, oxidone or something like that, and they say it's as harsh, if not worse, than heroin. We need to work with the docs to stop prescribing heavy doses of those things to kids. That it's making our kids go crazy, you know, and they go and commit crimes, and then they go to prison for prescribed drugs as well as illegal drugs. We have 2 bills on that right now.
Senator Garcia, you mentioned briefly Senate Bill 64. We have to mention is a child abuse public awareness campaign. Appropriating $350,000 to enable a Pound Safe campaign, emphasizing the public's responsibility to report the abuse. Do you think that we'll see more cases of child abuse with this campaign?
Yes, I think so, because one thing that happens is, besides sometimes not wanting to report abuse, this would put a telephone number on the billboard that you can see and know where to report. I have received many phone calls I've been here 24 years. I cannot tell you the number of phone calls that I have received on child abuse, a grandma, a mother, a father, and then an uncle. And you know what? They call me because of my legislation. I refer them straight away to the DA. They don't know where to go. We need to educate them. If anything, just more than public awareness, learn how to report child abuse would be the intent of those billboards. And I've seen them throughout New Mexico, but we ran out of money, CYFD.
Why do you think that a lot of people don't report child abuse? Is it, number one, it's none of my business, or is it the fear of them getting in trouble for reporting it?
Well, maybe they don't have a lot of murders of children in their areas. There was one year when we did the Brianna bill, I think there were something like 11 deaths of children in Doñana County in that year alone. It was a very high number. Of course I'm going to take an interest in that. All legislators should take an interest in this. You know, I should tell you something that I took both bills through public affairs, 58 and 59, without a single vote of negative vote, all positive. Everybody knows the importance of it, particularly women.
Senator Garcia, how do we make people, especially those without children in our community, start caring for the young ones in the state?
Children, people without children?
How do we get them to start caring for? How do we start getting them to care about children in our community?
I'm a person without children. I'm a single person, never been married, never had a child. I care because it's a human thing. I mean, the idea of seeing a little baby battered, being thrown up in the air, full of cigarette butts, burns on his little body, the ribs broken, totally. Some of the policemen that have had to go on those cases actually need some type of therapy afterwards because of what they saw. All women need to be involved in child abuse. I know that all my friends back home are, and they applaud what I'm doing here to save children. And we talk about them as our future leaders. What future leaders if we're going to treat them like little dolls or do whatever we want with them? For heaven's sakes, and don't give me that they're on methamphetamine or whatever. If a guy has a problem with drugs, why doesn't he take his own life and leave the child alone? We have the Safe Haven Act, sponsored and passed by our Tim Jennings, our pro tem, years back. And what that does, if you don't want a child, if the mother can't take care of the child, they're poor or whatever, take that baby in a box, if you will, cradle somewhere, and put it in front of a hospital, a clinic, a law enforcement office. They'll take care of that baby. They'll make sure it's taken care of, and there will be no ramifications or allegations against you. Nobody will even know who left the baby there.
Senator Garcia,
that's one item we need to use.
Senator Garcia, thank you so much for being part of our program again. We appreciate it.
I appreciate it as well. Thank you. Say hi to all the folks out there. Tell them I love them, and to please take care of our children.
Will do. Senator Garcia in Santa Fe. I'm Carlos Correa. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Your Legislators is a production of KRWG Broadcasting. Copyright New Mexico State University Board of Regents.